The Dolphins wrap up the NFL preseason this Friday night in Tampa Bay against the Buccaneers. And on today's show, we're going to preview that final preseason game. We previewed the first two against Atlanta and Washington with the top 10 players I got my eyes on. But this time, we're going to do the top 5 storylines that we have to watch for the final preseason game for the Miami Dolphins. So stick with us here. But we will also be live for this game on Friday night. Live at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, an hour before kickoff, 5 p.m. Central Time. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you join us. And if you are just joining this channel for the first time, they are a blast. We do live play-by-play, commentary, analysis, and have some drinks, talk everything Dolphins football. So hit that sub button and join us. This is the thumbnail, so if you see it on YouTube, click on it. All right, let's get into the first thing that I'm watching for. Braxton Berrios, can he bounce back from that first preseason game that he played in against Washington? Because he didn't play against Atlanta due to injury, played against the Commanders last Saturday, and was absolutely horrific. And he's lucky that there's been so many injuries to this wide receiver core, like Odell Beckham Jr., like River Craycraft, like Taj Washington, because if it was to me, I don't think Braxton Berrios has done enough to earn a roster spot on this 53-man team, even though I've consistently said he's likely going to be an absolute lock due to his special teams value. But after seeing Malik Washington and what he can provide for the Dolphins in kick returns and punt returns, then Braxton Berrios' role on special teams is kind of diminishing a little bit. And if he's not able to perform better as a wide receiver, then why am I keeping someone who could be replaced by Malik Washington but provides nothing on the offensive end as a wide receiver? Like against Washington, he had 2 targets and no catches. And he should have had 1 catch for a 20-yard touchdown, but he dropped one that hit him right in the freaking chest on a dot by Skylar Thompson after he rolled out. And it could have changed the entire outlook that we have on Skylar Thompson as the backup quarterback potentially on this team. Either way you want to slice it, Braxton Berrios has not had that strong of a training camp. He has not been good in the preseason thus far, and if he wants to kind of certify himself on this 53-man team going into Tuesday's roster cutdown day, and even potentially just give himself a role on this Dolphins roster heading into the regular season, he must perform tonight, and I expect that we see him tonight and play a decent amount. Next up, 2 UDFA corners that I have my eye on for. There are 2 guys that have been really good in training camp, really good in the preseason that were both UDFAs, Storm Duck and Isaiah Johnson. Storm Duck was a UDFA out of Louisville, former North Carolina Tar Heel. Isaiah Johnson came from the University of Syracuse. Shout out Willie Fins! But either way, they two have been really, really good, specifically Storm Duck. He has been excellent for Miami in the 2 preseason games. He's played in a lot of snaps, and he had his best game in week 2 against the Washington Commanders after a pretty solid first week against the Falcons. You see his numbers on screen right there. No receptions allowed on 4 targets, a PBU, 86.8 overall grade, and 88.1 coverage grade. It was actually the highest graded player that PFF had for the Dolphins in that Week 2 game against the Commanders. But Isaiah Johnson, by all accounts from beat reporters and my own eyes watching the games during training camp, he has been really, really good. So it's going to be tough that these 2 are likely not going to both make the team. And it's a very high possibility that both of them miss the team altogether due to Ethan Bonner, Saron Neal, Cam Smith, and Nick Needham all being the top 4 on the depth chart after the starting 3 of Jalen Ramsey, Kendall Fuller, and Kader Kohu. Dolphins have a lot of good corners, and it's unfortunate that all of them can't make this team. But if you had to pick one of the corners to make this Dolphins 53-man roster, out of the 2 we just talked about in UDFA land, Storm Duck and Isaiah Johnson, which one would it be? Type SD for Duck, type IJ for Isaiah Johnson. Channing Tindall's last push is a storyline that I've got my eye on for, and I don't believe it's going to be good enough, but I'd like to be proven wrong because he actually has had a really strong first 2 games in the Dolphins preseason. He has had 11 tackles, 1.5 sacks. He led the Dolphins in tackles in that Week 1 game alongside Patrick McMorris against the Atlanta Falcons. Like, Tindall has been really, really good in these 2 preseason games, which we said he needed to do in order to make this team. But I just don't believe it's enough, and I don't think Miami's keeping more than 4 inside linebackers due to other positions needing more players like corners, like wide receivers, like offensive linemen. So I think 4 linebackers is as deep as it goes, and this is just how I see it. David Long Jr. and Jordan Brooks and Anthony Walker Jr. are your guaranteed top 3 guys. Duke Riley, I think, has a very strong edge to be that linebacker for Miami this upcoming year. I think I give it an 85 chance that Duke Riley's the 4th guy, 15%. It's Channing Tindall. Tindall was a former 3rd-round pick out of Georgia, has never flashed, started to play a little bit better this August, but ultimately I think it's too late for Channing to make this team. Make sure you're started with Prize Picks, who is actually the sponsor on today's show. Prize Picks is the best daily fantasy sports app, and it's the only one that I use when I watch Miami Dolphins football and other sports around the league. Pick more or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you can win up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks. Yes, you heard that correctly. Turn 10 into 1,000 with Prize Picks right now. More than 5 million active members playing Prize Picks on a daily basis, which is why it's just the best, because you can go to daily projections. You can go to season-long projections. You can already make picks for week 1 of football. Tyreek Hill, more than on 91.5 receiving yards, which means Tua is going to have more than 255.5 passing yards. And I think Joe Burrow is sneaky going to struggle in his first game back after a lot of injuries last year against the New England Patriots defense, less than 252.5 passing yards. Week 1 of football is almost here, and you can already get some picks on those games. You can also still go to the baseball world, golf world, fighting world. You can do it all. So get started with Prize Picks today. Pick more, pick less, but get that first deposit match up to $100 when you download the app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS, or CLNS. You can also just go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS. That is code CLNS. That's what it is. Links in the description and comments of today's video. How could I not say Mike White versus Skylar Thompson as a storyline that we have to watch for, right? These two have been probably the headlining storyline of the entire Dolphins preseason thus far, because those two have both been atrocious. I think that's a great word to use for that, because it's been that bad. Like, look at their numbers, folks. I don't even want to talk about them. That's how bad it's been. But it's really just the eye test, too. Like, when you think about the way they're throwing and the way they're missing some of these passes and some of the decisions that they've made, it just has not been pretty. And it's something that I am very, very concerned about. And I do believe that as things are currently sitting, this is before the Dolphins' final preseason game. And if one of them lights it up tonight against the Buccaneers, maybe we have a different conversation. Maybe we do. But at least as things currently are sitting, I think both of them should be cut. They won't cut both. And the Dolphins should try to find a different quarterback to add to this roster, whether it be a trade for like a Sam Howell, who's the backup in Seattle, whether it be a Tanner McKee, who's a 2nd or 3rd string guy in Philly, a Jameis Winston in Cleveland, a Dorian Thompson-Robinson in Cleveland as well, who is the 4th QB right there, and they're looking to potentially move off. Either way, I believe it is absolutely necessary, to add a quarterback to this roster. And I believe that Mike White and Skylar Thompson's days in Miami are outnumbered. But if they ball out tonight, maybe that could change. Do you agree with me, though? Make the call. Would you add a QB to this Dolphins roster in free agency, like a Ryan Tannehill, or via the trade market, type Y for yes or type N for no? Final battle, Lester Cotton versus Jack Driscoll. The 2 interior offensive linemen fighting for potentially the final roster spot on the offensive line depth chart. And if I had to give my prediction right now, folks, one of these guys will make the team and the other may be cut. I would say would be cut, but I still don't know what the Isaiah Wynn situation is. There isn't a lot of clarity on Isaiah Wynn, who's still on the PUP list. And maybe they carry Wynn through the first cut down day on 27th of August, and then place him on IR right away, and then they cut Lester Cotton or Jack Driscoll, and then just bring him right back after Isaiah Wynn goes on IR. Like, that's a very fine possibility and likely outcome if Isaiah Wynn never gets elevated off PUP list. But think about this. I only think Miami's going to keep 9 offensive linemen and these 10 names, which means Teron Armstead, Patrick Paul, Isaiah Wynn, Robert Jones, Aaron Brewer, Liam Eichenberg, Austin Jackson, Kendall Lamb. Like, those 8 guys are absolute locks to be on the 53-man roster if you're asking me. So if I'm thinking the Dolphins only keep 9, that means it really is between Jack Driscoll and Lester Cotton. And the ironic part of that all is that whoever gets cut could be on a different team, but whoever makes it could actually be the starting right guard for the Dolphins if Aaron Brewer misses week 1. Now, ideally, Aaron Brewer is the starting center week 1 if he returns from that hand injury. Robert Jones is your left guard, and Liam Eichenberg is your right guard, as that is how things look to be shaking up at least right now. But either way, I think they only keep 9, which means one of Cotton and Driscoll is likely going to be cut, and the other one is going to be on this team. All right, make sure you are subscribed to the channel because we're going to put out daily coverage of the Miami Dolphins. We'll also be live tonight for that Dolphins versus Buccaneers game. So come hang out with us on a Friday evening. Me, producer Matt Goldman, will be here breaking down the final preseason game for the Fins. I'm excited for this game because once it's done, we can start thinking about the regular season.